Hey guys, this is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us on the Thrive Bites podcast. This is season 4, and we're so excited for you to be here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Colin Zhu, double boarded in family and lifestyle medicine, and I interview the best and most passionate health and wellness experts of the industry on this platform. And we talk about plant-powered living, emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And this season, we're taking it live, we're taking it on multiple platforms, and we're taking it as a Q&A discussion as well as our interviewing of our guests. So we're super stoked about this, and please remember to like and subscribe down below, and we will see you. Welcome to the next episode.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Thrive Bites podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. You could be anywhere in the world, and I am so thrilled for you to take just a few moments to be with us today. And I am super excited for this particular topic. Today's topic is what you need to know about mushrooms. And our special guest today, his name is Jeff Chilton. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. He's gonna, let me know. He was raised in the Pacific Northwest, and he studied ethno-mycology at the University of Washinton in the late 60s, and started working on a commercial mushroom farm in Olympia, Washington in the early 70s. Over the next span of 10 years, he became production manager and responsible for cultivating over 2 million pounds of Aquarius mushrooms per year, and has been involved in the research and development of Shitake, oyster, and enoki mushrooms, which I'm sure of you guys in the plant-based world have heard of, which resulted in the earliest U.S. fresh Shitake sales in 1978. Over time, he's been the founder of Mycomedia, which holds 4 mushroom conferences in the Pacific Northwest. And over time, he's been an expert in mushroom identification, ethno-mycology, and mushroom cultivation. In the 80s, he's spent a lot of time traveling overseas in China. And, Jeff Companies currently, Nammex was the first to offer a complete line of certified organic mushroom extracts to the U.S. nutritional supplement industry. And I am super, super excited. Without further ado, please welcome Jeff. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Dr. Zhu. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
I am so thrilled for you to be here. Thank you so much for spending, your time to be sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your expertise with us today.
Oh, I'm like I say, I'm glad to do it and happy to talk to you and your listeners.
Awesome. So let's get straight into it. I love hearing, people's origin stories. This podcast is all about plant-powered living and all this good stuff. But what's really the centerpiece of everything is really how does someone get from A to B? And you have a very, very unique niche in the food industry. And so I just am very, very curious on how did you arrive to the study of ethno-mycology. What is it, and what fueled your growing passion for it?
Well, I was born and raised in the Pacific Northwest, and Colin, listen, one of the things we're really known for up here is rain. Perfect climate for mushrooms. So there were mushrooms around me ever from the very beginning. And I was lucky enough to get out and do some wild mushroom hunting as a youngster. And then in the late 60s, when I went to university at the University of Washington, my field of study was actually anthropology, because I just loved other cultures. I was just really thought that'd be great to learn about that. But I also studied mycology while I was there. So I put the two together, and I worked on the use of mushrooms for food, for medicine, and in shamanic rites worldwide. And it was just a fascinating subject that I just dove into very deeply. But after university, what do you do with a degree in anthropology? Well, not a whole lot, but there was a mushroom farm 60 miles down the road from Seattle. I thought I'd love to grow mushrooms. That sounds really interesting. I went down there, I got a job. I was there for the next 10 years. I mean, Dr. Zhu, I was literally living with mushrooms for 10 years. It was an amazing experience.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I can't really imagine. I mean, for those of us that live in more of a urban and metropolitan area, we're just surrounded by people, you know what I'm saying? So, I can only imagine what it's like to, live amongst, mushrooms. So, during that time, how many different species were you, I guess, working with? You're dealing with farming, cultivating, like what is involved in that kind of process?
Well, it's really interesting because, like, mushrooms, they don't have seeds. How do you grow these things? So, mushrooms have spores, not seeds. But the other thing about mushrooms is every single mushroom you have ever eaten has been picked by hand. Think about that for a minute. Picked by hand. So at this mushroom farm, it is a very large farm. 2 million pounds a year we were growing. We had an army of harvesters there, and mushrooms do not sleep. We had maybe 30 different rooms filled with a mushroom crop, and they had to be harvested every single day. There's no
Mm.
day of the year where harvesters are not there on that farm harvesting those mushrooms. And while I was there, I was fortunate enough to have a Japanese scientist as our research and development director, and he was growing shiitake, oyster mushroom, and enoki-take. So I also got to see how to grow these other mushrooms. So for me, my education there in mushroom growing and just being around mushrooms was very extensive. And can you
Mm.
imagine? Here I am. It's the 1970s. I am eating fresh shiitake mushrooms. There's probably no one else in the United States that was able to say that. It was just
Wow.
incredible. And I don't know about you, but I love enoki mushrooms too.
Mm.
Oh man, they're delicious.
Yeah, 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 definitely. I mean, growing up in a Chinese household, we just thrived on it. At least I did. And I didn't realize, many, many years later, after I switched into, more whole foods, plant-based, I just realized, wow, it's just so much with it. It provides the umami flavor, you know what I'm saying? It's literally where the MSG synthetic derivative comes from, is glutamic acid. And
Exactly.
yeah, and to me that was mind blowing. I didn't realize that until I entered into culinary school, to be able to use things like that to to be able to translate that food language for others. You know what I'm saying? Because I think we eat with our eyes, we eat with our nose, and as long as you're able to, I wouldn't say manipulate the senses, but if you're able to kind of create a dish where you don't have to necessarily use animal-based foods, and why not? And mushrooms was definitely key when I went to school.
Well,
So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in China, the main mushroom, the most important mushroom that they grow there is shiitake. The
Mhm.
Chinese name is shanggu, and that means fragrant mushroom. And
Mm,
oh man, I tell you, Colin, when you're in the shiitake mushroom house, the fragrance of those shiitake is incredible. I mean, I recommend to anybody who is eating mushrooms or not, put shiitake mushrooms into your diet. If you're
yeah.
going to pick one mushroom, use shiitake. It's an amazing, amazing mushroom.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. For the Chinese, we use shiitake all the time. And in culinary school, I fell in love with using trumpet mushrooms, trumpet oyster mushrooms. I love enokis. They're really good. I guess a basic, if we go even more basic than that, and this is probably a lot more details than needed, but someone that is not as familiar, and we're probably not, majority of us are probably not in the wild foraging, right? But is there any clear, distinctive features on what is considered, mushrooms that are edible versus, that are not? Is there any like clear, features or characteristics you would say?
No, no, absolutely not. And the thing to remember too is that every mushroom is unique. For example, nutritionally, mushrooms have a good profile of protein, anywhere from 20 to 40%. They're mostly carbohydrates, 40 to 70%, but those carbohydrates are not starch. They're mostly things like mannitol and trehalose, which are very slow acting carbs, low in fat, very, very high in fiber. And a lot of that fiber is beta glucan, which is the medicinal compound that is so important in mushrooms. B vitamins, B1, 2, and 3. Mushrooms have a fabulous profile nutritionally. And just remember, each mushroom is a little bit different. That's why I'll say that's a range from 20 to 40% protein, something like that. But nutritionally, they are literally a powerhouse. And that's why I'm always telling people, before you supplement or anything, put mushrooms into your diet. It is absolutely the forgotten food. And in my opinion, it's the missing dietary link. And there are studies, Colin, out of Asia, where they look at very large groups of people and they asked about their diet. And what they have found is that people who eat more mushrooms live longer.
Mm.
I totally believe that.
Yeah, for sure. And there's this, I'm sure you can probably attest to this, is that we just need, you know, I think there's just so much more to learn, you know what I'm saying? Because how many species are there, in terms of edible mushrooms, would you say?
Well, you know what? There are thousands of species of mushrooms, but the number of actual edible mushrooms that we would call edible and choice, enough that we would cultivate them and maybe hunt them down in the wild, maybe we're talking about 24, maybe 25 species that you could call high level culinary mushrooms. I mean, a lot of mushrooms are edible, but you're not going to like the taste. so,
Mm.
so, but in terms of something that we would be looking for and our choice edible mushrooms, again, a dozen for sure, and as many as maybe 20 different species fit that category.
Yeah, definitely. And for those that live in cities that have more of a high cultural diversity, you're in British Columbia, you're near Vancouver, Seattle, Washington. I'm in LA right now. Big urban cities have Asian markets, they have Indian markets, they have all kinds of different other ethnic markets that have more of a showcase of mushrooms. Whenever I go to a, quote unquote traditional market, I'm always, disheartened just seeing white button mushrooms. And there's a lot more than that.
well, yeah, and today, in today's markets, if you go, for example, to a Whole Foods,
Mhm.
you will have probably 6 or 7 different species of mushrooms there. Sure, a lot of supermarkets, standard supermarkets, they'll have the button mushroom and maybe they'll have shiitake. The issue is sometimes they don't know how to treat those mushrooms properly. I've
Mm.
been in a store here recently where I looked at their shiitake and it was so bad that I had to tell the produce manager that those mushrooms should not be on the shelf. You have
Oh,
to,
wow.
yeah, they were not saleable, but yet he left them out there in the box. They were
Oh.
ragged. What happens too, for example, with a fresh shiitake, if you look at the gills and you start to see brown spots on it, that's bacteria.
Mm.
And same with button mushrooms. If you see a button mushroom and it's got a lot of brown spots on it, bacterial blotch. It's like, so
Hmm.
even produce managers are not used to dealing properly with mushrooms. So a lot of times people might go there and go, yeah, I'm going to get some mushrooms. They look at them and go, oh my God, like an oyster mushroom. After people have like pawed through it a little bit, they look ragged. They don't look edible. So that's one of the issues that come up in terms of somebody going to the market.
Yeah, definitely. Since we're on the topic of, nutritional benefits, what are some common misconceptions that you can help us debunk, when, people are asking about, mushrooms for their health?
Well, number one, it's not going to act immediately. People need to understand that when you're taking a mushroom supplement, for example, that's going to sit in the background. It's not like taking, for example, an aspirin or ibuprofen and it acts immediately. I look at them much in the same way that I look at vitamins. You take the vitamin, but you don't say, oh man, that vitamin D really feels good today. That's not how it works. It's there, it's in the background. You need to incorporate it into your dietary regime, not just the food, but actually the supplement. And it will be there working for you. And over a period of time, you should be able to start saying, my health seems to be a little bit better than normal. Now, look, you still have to have a solid diet, which is the foundation of our health. You still need to be active. You need exercise. You need fresh air, all of those things to be truly healthy. But the mushrooms can provide you benefits, but they will be in the background. Don't expect them to happen overnight. And I think a lot of people want something to happen almost immediately. And if it doesn't, they're like, well, gee, that didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. A common thing that I hear of, well, culinary wise, whenever we prepare mushrooms, we tend to kind of remove the stems. Traditionally, we've always, known that the stems is, not really the best part. Sometimes it could be toxic. Can you like elucidate that, for us?
Sure. With a shiitake mushroom, the stem is tough. It's chewy. So taking the stem off of a shiitake mushroom, I totally agree with that. I'm chopping the stems off of mine. But with other mushrooms like enoki mushroom, most of what you're getting is the stem, and it's just as good. The enoki, it's got a long stem, it's got a small little cap. For those people not familiar with enoki mushroom, in a package of enoki, you've got 1,000 mushrooms in there, and they're like something you've never seen before. It's amazing. So depending, I mean, like with the agaricus, I will trim that. It's already been trimmed, but look at the base of the stem with your button mushroom. And if the bottom of it is brown, generally that would mean that, okay, it's discolored a little bit from the environment. And also it could be bacterial. So I would trim that off as well.
So generally speaking, seeing any brown spots, is basically just kind of like bacterial collections.
Generally speaking, that's right, especially if it's on the surface of the cap, or if it's with a shiitake mushroom on the gills themselves, and sometimes even the cap of the shiitake will start to kind of wilt a little bit and it will collapse. You can really tell the difference when you're looking at fresh shiitake, a high quality fresh shiitake and a low quality shiitake. And when you go into Chinatown, for example, Colin, it's mostly dried shiitake that people are buying, right? Because up until recently, that was all that was available in North America was dried shiitake. It really hasn't been until the last 20 years where shiitake has been readily available as a fresh mushroom.
Yeah. It's very common for us to see. And I kind of grew up, walking down the aisles of, a Chinese market and just seeing it, and it's so convenient having it dried,
Absolutely.
It takes a little bit of time just to rehydrate. And then it's just, so flavorful. We make so much soups out of it. My mother's a Chinese medical, physician. So, we make a lot of medicinal, soups over time. So it's just so much, variety. Switching gears a little bit, I know that, you spent a little time traveling, to China. I believe this is before you founded your company. what was the biggest takeaways from your travels and research, going through to that country and being able to learn as much as you did?
Well, it's interesting because when I was working at the mushroom farm in the 70s, I was reading a lot about China and all the other mushrooms that they were growing, because that was a real fascination for me, all of these different other mushrooms. When I first went to China, that was in 1989 after I'd left the mushroom farm, and I went over to an international conference on mushrooms in Shanghai. And man, I tell you, for the next 10 years, I traveled all throughout China, and I, I never expected, I never expected that. I really never expected to be in Asia, but I love the deep culture there. I love the ancient parts about it, especially. I would go to sacred mountains over there. Uh, Chinese cuisine done properly is just so delicious. The way they treat their vegetables and meats. I mean, one of the things that was really interesting too was the fact that meat is not prepared and you get a steak or something. No, it's like sliced and put into different dishes. So it's a totally different way of eating. So that was really fun. And also the fact of whenever we'd go out to dinner or something, there would be, we'd all sit around a round table. Usually there's a lazy Susan in the middle. They start off with about 15 different small dishes, hors d'oeuvres, and you just kind of spin it around. You take different things, and then they'd come out and they would bring the dishes kind of one at a time, which is also something very different as well, which is quite enjoyable. And also they bring it out, it is hot, ready to go. They spin it around on that lazy Susan. You take what you want, and in a way, it's, oh, a lot of people are into the slow food movement. Man, having a meal in China is slow food, and it's wonderful. People just have a great time. And so I really enjoyed that. And my associates over there are just some of the greatest people in the world. And look, what's interesting too? Today, China produces 85% of the world's mushrooms.
Oh, 85.
85% of the world's. Can you imagine that? So when I'm traveling around and I'm going to these mushroom farms, and the thing about it too is there was not a lot of waste over there either. They were utilizing everything. And one of the beauties of mushroom farming is that it's generally, mushrooms are grown on agricultural wastes. So straw is one of the main ingredients of growing mushrooms, or sawdust today is what we use for a lot of the substrate to grow our mushrooms. So, and also they were using appropriate technologies in China. For example, reishi loves hot temperatures. So it's growing all during the summer, harvested the first week in September. Shiitake likes cooler temperatures, so it is slowly growing from, let's just say, September to November, and it's being harvested in Novembers. And a lot of times in some of the areas, after they harvested the rice, they would bring out these small shiitake logs and place them down in shade houses in the same spot where they had just harvested the rice. And it wasn't like where I was growing mushrooms on the big commercial Western farm where everything was climate controlled. No, it was all being grown during the seasons. Oh, I just love that. To me, that was really appropriate technology. Now, don't get me wrong here, because look, China today is one of the most modern countries in the world. We've got freeways over there that are better than anything we've got in North America. I'm riding around on trains that are going 300 to 400 kilometers an hour. It is an amazing, amazing place. They have mushroom farms that are as modern as anything in the world, but most of the mushrooms that we grow are still grown in a relatively traditional manner. And that, for me, I really enjoy that, and I love my associates over there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a completely, way of life, in a lot of different ways. It's, our histories spans thousands of years. So, they've done a lot of different things, through experience, coming down the pike. So,
Yes.
with a lot of products, if you're saying that 85% is coming from China, right? And nowadays, because there's so many people there, I think we're up to what 1.4 billion in China, out of 7 going on 8 billion in the whole global population.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Suffice to say, pollution is a huge deal, right? So how does that affect, would you say, the products that are coming over?
Well, one of the things I like to say to people is look, when it comes to pollution, it really depends on where exactly you are, because let's face it, in the world, if you're near an industrial area, it doesn't matter whether you're in China or you're in the United States, like on the Gulf Coast, you're not going to want to eat vegetables being produced in the ground around where all those petrochemical industries are. We grow our mushrooms deep in the mountains of China, away from all of the industrial pollution over there. And not only that, we test them before they even leave China. We test them for heavy metals. We test them for pesticides and fungicides. We have a whole microbiological panel. We test them when we bring them over to North America. We test them a second time. And look, I believe in organic certification. In 1997, I took the largest organic certifier in the United States with me to China, and I organized the very first organic mushroom certification course in China, 1997, because I believe in that as an ethic. I believe in organically certified food. I believe that we shouldn't have to be eating things that have chemicals that we don't even know are there. So for me, that's very important. And again, it takes a long time to get to where we're growing our mushrooms. They're deep in the mountains of Zhejiang province. And to get there's a train ride and then a couple-hour drive to the end of the road.
Probably a bike ride too.
Well,
you always need those bikes.
Well, yeah. And what's funny is when I first was in China in 1989, like in Beijing and most other places, the bikes were just everywhere, wide lanes full of bikes. There's maybe two small lanes in the center of the major thoroughfares for vehicles, and there weren't many of them. And the bike parking lots were unbelievable.
How do you find your bike?
I don't know.
Back then, we probably didn't have GPS, right? Like how did they identify their bikes?
And they all look the same. They're all black. And they're all, I don't know how they did it.
The same bike factory.
Yes, they did. There's probably only 5 of those factories in all of China pumping them out. I don't know how they did it. I rode around on bicycles back in the 90s in China. Today, it is rare to see somebody on a bicycle. Maybe in the countryside you do, but in the cities, no, everybody's on a electric scooter. And which is a good thing in terms of it's not a polluting type of scooter. It's an electric scooter, but be careful when you are about to cross the street.
Oh man, I love it. We're gonna go, Jeff. We're gonna go into a commercial break, and for those that are watching, please line up your comments, your questions for Mr. Jeff. This is a great session. If you wanted to learn anything about mushrooms, please, now is the time to ask. And we'll be right back. After this commercial break. Hey guys, this is Dr. Colin Zhu, and welcome to the Thrive Formula. I'm so excited for you to be here and to be just a little curious about what we do. If you know a little bit about my work, I created the Shitake in January 2017, and since launching it, I've written a book about thriving and hosting my podcast called Thrive Bites, where we've reached over 90 countries and counting. It's been a humbling and unexpected experience so far.
The main driving force to create the Chef Doc was born out of the need to help others to combat chronic lifestyle-related diseases such as high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, inactive physical lifestyle, and simply not being able to cook healthfully. I noticed the same paucity and deficit within our medical school education and also within our medical training across the nation. 2020 for us, like the rest of the world, gave us a new set of challenges. Even with health disparities and racial injustice, I decided to look at things from a very silver lining perspective. And that meant, how do we become more resilient as a community? How do we pivot as a human species? Do I focus on me or us? With so many different people and different walks of life, I realized that we're more similar than dissimilar. And to cultivate a thriving mindset meant a lot of self-work, self-education, and practical tools, but also in conjunction with other people. I could not be where I am without the support and foundation of others. That means right now, more than ever, we need to be unified and we need to thrive together. Therefore, I decided to create this virtual summit experience, gathering and collaborating with over 45 speakers from different parts of the health and wellness industry to inspire, educate, and teach you the tools to thrive, not just in your own life, but also to those around you. And we will do this through the 5 pillars, what I like to call my 5 to thrive. Food as medicine, functional fitness, relationships, community, and resilience. I'm beyond ecstatic for you to be here, and the only question I would ask is, do you dare to choose to thrive in your own life? If you do, then come on in, let's learn together, and I'll see you inside. Thank you very much.
All right, so we're back. Now, for those of you who haven't got a chance to watch, there's a wonderful documentary on Netflix called Fantastic Fungi. It is a wonderful, wonderful documentary. And, you know, me and Jeff, we were talking about it offline. And I think you know of some of those colleagues that were, you know, on that documentary. I think it came out a couple of years, but it just highlights, I guess, the beauty of what mushrooms can do, different families of, you know, fungi can do. And I guess the question is that, is it a little bit too late for, you know, bringing up this kind of awareness, you know, especially of mushrooms into the world, or is it better late than never, would you say?
Well, you know what? Look, ever since the 60s, which is when I came of age, we were talking about this coming together of East and West. And back then it was much more philosophically, because a lot of people were looking to the East for, you know, whether it be religious practices or just overall general philosophy of how to live life. So that has in a sense been something that's ongoing for quite some time and has been very positive, in my opinion, in the fact as well that foods are catching up in that sense. I mean, mushrooms are such a major part of Asian cuisine in China, in Japan, in Korea. It is just a foundational food. I mean, people take it for granted, but man, this is something that's been there and they've been eating for a long, long time. In terms of Europeans, it has been, well, in Eastern Europe, in Russia, France, they have been really onto mushrooms for quite a while. But when it comes to England and the whole Commonwealth in that sense, not so much. And that came across to the United States, to where we have only been growing this agaricus mushroom, and in a major way, since about 1910, 1920. Whereas in Asia, in China, Colin, they were cultivating some mushrooms back about 300, 500 CE, shiitake mushrooms the 12th century. They learned how to grow shiitake. Can you imagine? And it's like I was telling you, mushrooms don't have any seeds. How do you grow these things?
I guess is what manipulation of what the combination of climate, temperature, and environment. Would you say like what are like whenever we grew up in grade school, it was a plant or a flower. It's like sunlight, water, and soil, right? Like what is it? What are the features of growing a mushroom? What are the essential elements?
Well, for one, you know what? This organism that we call a mushroom is just one part of this fungal organism. It starts with a spore. Those spores go out, they land on the ground, on wood. When conditions are right, they will germinate into a very fine filament called a hypha. When those hypha come together and fuse, they will form a network, and that network is called mycelium. And you've probably heard of mycelium. Mycelium is out there underfoot. We normally don't see it, but it is consuming all of that organic matter that falls to the earth every year. All of the plants that die, leaves, wood, mycelium, fungal mycelium, and bacteria and bugs are consuming all of that, repurposing that into humus for plants. So we don't normally see that. So we've got the mycelium, and when conditions are right, up comes a mushroom. And you know how funny it is with a mushroom? It's like you're walking along one day and you go, oh my God, look at that, a mushroom. And you sort of go, where did that come from? It wasn't there yesterday. Okay, look, it actually was, but it just wasn't big enough for you to notice. Because it takes the cycle. Once that mushroom starts to form in the ground or on the wood, it's small, but then it's about a 2 to 3 week progression of growth and maturity to where finally the cap comes up. It opens up underneath our gills. On those gills are where the spores are produced. Now we have a completion of the life cycle. So there's 3 parts: spore, mycelium, and mushroom. And look, nobody historically is eating mycelium, because what are you gonna do? Dig up the ground to get it?
Well, the documentary did a really good job because they made this animation where it's almost like a network. It's almost like a nervous system network, right? That's just penetrating the undergrounds, and we just walk on it all day, every day, and it's incredible.
Yes. And you know what? This is what's interesting. So what do we actually use as seed to grow mushrooms? We actually grow that mycelium on a sterile carrier material, like maybe grain or something like that. And we grow the mycelium on it. And then we will take that, once it's grown out, we'll break it up. We'll blend it into our compost or our sawdust or whatever it is. And every grain is covered with live mycelium. And that's what grows off and grows into the growth medium, which we call a substrate. And that starts out the whole process. So that's actually our seed. And we call it mushroom spawn.
Jeff, when traveling, is a little bit better, I'm going to come to your company and, watch this process if you'll have me.
Sure. But you might have to come and travel in China with me.
Which to kind of look at all on the hillsides and mountains and all that, right?
Oh my God, Colin, it is so beautiful. And look, China's a huge country. Oh my goodness. From top to bottom, it's one of those places where up north right now they're getting into the cold season, whereas still down in the south in Hong Kong or Macau and those places, they're still like, oh my God, it's too hot, right? It's got the full range of climates. So it's a very interesting country.
Yeah. So I'm going to have a couple of last questions. We're going to close out the session. With the current literature that we have, scientific literature that we have on mushrooms, are there any other ways to take advantage of mushrooms, for our health? Is there something that we have yet don't know about it, I guess, in the popular quote unquote mainstream, of society, that we commonly known as mushrooms. And, how else can we take advantage of it?
Well, you know what? There are a couple things. First of all, I'm always encouraging people to utilize mushrooms in their diet, and not just once a week, but 3 or 4 times a week, because they're so versatile. You can use them in so many different ways. You know that as a chef. There's just such a versatility to that. Wonderful flavors. Supplement wise, which is what my company sells, we sell mushroom powders, but we extract them. We take the dried mushrooms like that, those dried shiitake. We'll take 10 kilos of dried shiitake and turn it into 1 kilo of shiitake mushroom extract. And that becomes concentrated. And then that's what we will sell to companies, and they will put it out in capsules, bottles, or as a powder. And that is just a way that you can supplement your health other than just eating the mushrooms.
Mhm.
Beyond that, I think those are really the two key ways. And of course, um, we sell them either in powder form or in capsule form, because a lot of people like to do that daily smoothie where they'll toss in different things and they'll create their own little alchemical drink that they will do on a daily basis. And so a lot of people are using mushrooms. So, but traditionally, the way that they make their medicines in China is that they throw everything in a pot and boil it up and drink it as a tea. And that's another fantastic way. And that, in a sense, I look at that as like, this is not much different than a soup, right?
Mm.
It just depends on what it is that you happen to be cooking up in that pot of water, whether it needs a longer time or a shorter time. But it's a great way to get benefits as well. It's very fast acting to drink that liquid.
Yeah. This is a comment from CMET, consumption of mushrooms and green tea. This is actually Kiyomi, the founder of the tea brand. She says combining them together was associated with nearly 90% drop in breast cancer odds. So that's really cool.
Wow. You know what? One of the things that I picked up from my travels in China was a love of green tea. We had green tea all of the time. And what I also loved about it, forget about tea bags and all of that. No, you just put the leaves in. And it was really interesting too, Colin, because they told me it was the second cup that was the best. So, there's so much to it beyond it, but I drink green tea every day. And I love the fact of looking at my glass of green tea and seeing all those beautiful tea leaves in there. And that also made me think, oh, so that's how people read the tea leaves.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how else do they, bring it into fruition? So.
Yeah.
Oh man. So Jeff, one of my last questions is, your company, Nammex or Nammex? How do you pronounce it? Nammex. What is it? What do you guys produce, and what do you hope to achieve with it?
Well, look, I totally believe in mushrooms. And the first thing I say, of course, is eat mushrooms. But I also believe that they have tremendous benefits that we can utilize. And the key there is looking at them in terms of prevention. Mushrooms are part of our preventative medicine. And like you're saying, look, food as medicine, that's really the key here. And then if you would want to supplement beyond that, just like you might want to take, oh, gee, I'm not getting enough vitamin C, or I'm not getting enough vitamin D. Look, you can supplement with mushrooms in that same way. The key there is, look, you don't need a product that's just nothing more than a mushroom powder, because you'd be better off eating mushrooms than just trying to buy a supplement that's nothing but straight powder. That's where extracting them, making them more concentrated. And the other thing we do too is that we will actually analyze for the important compounds in there, the beta glucans. It's the beta glucans that make mushrooms medicinal, and that's what we promote, and we analyze everything for those.
Gotcha. Yeah. So how do people, find you? How do they reach out? If they wanted to try, the supplements or products that you guys offer, how do they, find you guys?
Well, the company is Nammex, Nammex. If you come to nammex.com, we have a ton of great information there, including slideshows taking you to our farms in China. It's really awesome. Nammex, though, is business to business. We're a wholesaler, but we have a retail side called Real Mushrooms. So if you go to realmushrooms.com,
Mm.
we also have a lot of great educational material there, and that's what I really promote as much as anything else. Come to our websites for educational information. If you want to try the products, realmushrooms.com, you can buy our products there, either in capsule form or as bulk powders. So either way.
Okay. That's awesome. Because I'm sure some people, I guess, for some, it's kind of like olives. It's like an acquired taste, you know what I'm saying? And maybe, they're not used to growing up, having, because mushrooms has its own, tastes and texture and flavorings, right? Some people might not be used to it and they would rather go for maybe powder or in the form of a tea, or because I do see companies that actually use mushrooms and make a whole tea line out of it, or a coffee line out of it, actually.
Yeah.
That's been evolving.
Yeah. And a couple things I would say, one of which is you probably are aware of the fact that reishi mushroom is very bitter. So you're not going to want to necessarily put that into your smoothie. Others have a nice flavor, but just be aware of that fact that certain mushrooms like reishi, which could be taken as a tea if you don't mind the bitters, but otherwise that's probably something that you'd want to take in a capsule.
Okay. We had another question here. Same ET asks, can we buy them from the US?
Well, our products are all sold online. So realmushrooms.com is sold online and is fulfilled from our California warehouse. So yes, absolutely.
Okay. Excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I also call, before we leave, I just want to tell you, I have a really great ancient Chinese poem that I'm going to relate to you because it's one of those just amazing kind of Zen-like poems.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. This is how it goes. Without leaves, without buds, without flowers, yet they form fruit as a food, as a tonic, as a medicine. The entire creation is precious.
Wow. I love it.
Oh man. Yeah.
I love it because it's just so different. Like we've highlighted, in this talk, it's just so different. So
yeah.
Isn't nature amazing?
Oh, you know what? And I live in an old growth forest here, Colin, and the natural world to me, I'm constantly thrilled. And part of it is moving slowly enough that it will speak to you and resonate, and you'll be able to hear the animals, you'll be able to see the plants, and that's really the key. Sometimes we move a little bit too quickly. It's a very fast-paced society right now.
Yep.
And people really need to slow down a little bit at times, which is why people like to get out in nature and just take it in and become part of it. I mean,
yeah,
that's where we belong.
Yeah, for sure. Before we created this concrete jungle or urban jungle that we've created for ourselves, for better or worse. I think we need a whole nother episode just on forest bathing.
Yeah. Well, you see, that's what for me is kind of funny, because I live in a forest. I walk out on my property and I am forest bathing every day.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Jeff, thank you so much for being here with us. I had a great time. This was a great session. Obviously, we can probably talk for hours, just on this wondrous, topic called mushrooms. And, I am looking forward for, more of the awareness to be brought forth, more of the education. Thank you for doing what you're doing and contributing, in your way, to society. So I really thank you so much for you to be here.
Thank you very much for having me, Colin. It's been really a pleasure to meet you and to be on your show. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you very much. We're going to play this outro video. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you like this, please share this with another person, and please subscribe, to this channel, and please like and comment. And we will see you on the next one. And please say goodbye to Jeff.
Guys, thank you so much for watching that episode. We hope you enjoy it. And please remember to like and subscribe down below so you can get continuous updates for future episodes and future guests. And we can't wait for this upcoming season. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.